Well, welcome into another edition of Hockey Talk in the Desert Southwest. As you can see, my guest right here, he's the face of the Coyotes. He's been around long enough to know everything about this organization. And Dave Vest, welcome in.
Thanks, Scott. How you doing?
I'm doing well, and the backdrop here is Vegas, obviously. So both of us have been up here for a few days watching the next-gen Vegas rookie face-off. And let's start right there, Dave. Talk a little bit about what you've seen the first couple of days up here.
Sure. Well, first of all, I think the Vegas Golden Knights have done a terrific job hosting this event. There's a lot of moving parts here. There's 6 teams participating. There's 3 games every day, so I want to commend them on doing a great job. They've been terrific hosts. As far as what I've seen so far, watching the Coyotes rookies compete, it was kind of a tale of 2 games. The first one, a 4-0 loss to San Jose, and then yesterday beating LA 4-2. I thought the Coyotes were much improved. Obviously, this is all about development of players, so wins and losses, you take them with a grain of salt. But as far as the development of players and the way the Coyotes competed in the first 2 games, there was definitely some players that stood out in my mind. I don't know if you want to go through that one by one, but overall, I've been impressed with some of the players the Coyotes have fielded.
Let's start right here with the first-round draft choice, Barrett Hayton. I thought he really made some strides from the time we saw him at rookie camp.
Yes, I agree. That's an excellent comment. He, of course, was drafted 5th overall by the Coyotes. A few experts were surprised by that, but the Coyotes wanted him all along, and they were excited to get Barrett. He's played in the first 2 games here. He was the center of the top line both days. I thought he played well. He hasn't scored, but I thought his speed was on display. And I thought that his hockey intelligence was on display in these first 2 games. Obviously, as the top line center, you're expected to make plays and create chances. And I think he's done that in these first 2 games here. I think the Coyotes are liking what they see.
You've seen him off the ice more than I have, but from what I've seen of the kid, he seems to really carry himself well for an 18-year-old, doesn't he?
He really does. He's the total package. The comment that stands out to me most of all from the draft is when we asked John Chaika, John, what was it about Barrett that put him over the top? And John said he doesn't have a flaw in his game. Everything he does well. There's not one thing that jumps off the page. It's just that he does everything well. And that's high praise for an 18-year-old. Obviously, he's been playing in junior hockey on a very good team surrounded by good players. But as John said, Barrett Hayton does everything well. There's not really a hole in his game that they want him to concentrate on. They've thrown him out here in these first 2 games and said, go compete. And I thought he's done a good job.
A lot of times when teams draft in the top 5 players, they're looking for somebody that's going to make an immediate impact.
Right.
But really, in Barrett's case, there's no rush, is there? I mean,
no.
He's semi-blocked for a few years, it looks like, at the center position.
Yeah, the Coyotes are very deep at center this season, which is something we haven't been able to say in quite a while. But if you look at the depth chart right now going into camp, the first 4 spots are full. There's a couple guys that are established NHL players who could play center if needed. So, I can go down the list if you want. You've got Derek Stepan at center. You've got Christian Dvorak, who just signed a lengthy contract extension. Right. There's also Brad Richardson. He's been in the league quite a long time at center. And Dylan Strome, he's a center. I don't know if he's going to play center, but he's going to get a shot with the Coyotes. And then there's, of course, Alex Galchenyuk, who the Coyotes traded for this summer. He hasn't been playing center, but he really wants to. And Rick Tocchet says, hey, this guy came to me and said he wants to play center. We're going to give him a shot. So Coyotes are loaded at center. Barrett Hayton, there absolutely is no rush. He can go play back in junior, and then just gradually come up. I think that's a good thing.
The other thing that I thought stood out the last couple of days has been the defensive play. I thought specifically the pairing of Pierre-Olivier Joseph and Kyle Capobianco. They were pretty strong, weren't they?
Yeah, very strong. I mean, and frankly, I'd be concerned if they weren't, because as far as skill goes, they're 2 of the best players on this team. P.O. Joseph was a first-round draft pick, not this year, but just last year.
Yeah.
And Kyle Capobianco, he's played in the American Hockey League last season and played well. So, yeah, those 2 as a pairing, they've been terrific here at this event. Capobianco had 2 goals in Sunday's game. So, and he's really stood out to me, just his poise and his experience. That's what you see at these events. Those guys that have been around for a while or who are the first-round draft picks, you really expect them to stand out here. And if you don't, that's the concern. But that hasn't been the case for the Coyotes, especially with those 2 guys.
Dave, let's take a quick break. We'll come right back, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the players that stood out, and we'll talk about the future of the Coyotes. All right, we're back for another segment with Dave Vest, the Senior Director of News.
Correct.
Ah, I got that right.
You got it right.
So
it's a fancy name for website content manager.
Yeah, but let's touch on that real briefly. That's a big thing right now in this day and age.
Sure.
I mean, I know you're on all the time because you have to be, right?
Right.
I mean, things happen. Here in Vegas last night, we saw that at 10:30 at night, right?
Right, absolutely.
So luckily they maybe keep you in bed. John Chaika doesn't make his moves at 10:30 at night,
Yeah.
But there's always something to do and some content to put out there, isn't there?
Absolutely. It's 365 days a year. There's no off season anymore. So much going on with trades and the draft and then events like this. It's really exciting, and there really is no time to catch your breath. I know it seems like it. I have friends ask me, hey, what do you do from the end of the regular season to training camp? And I could give them a long laundry list of things I do, but
Right.
Always something to do.
So I want to touch on a couple of guys that stood out to me at the very start of rookie camp, and
Sure.
I noticed them because they had two names on their jerseys. I'm talking about the Klima twins.
Sure.
And anybody that's been around hockey any length of time, I'm dating myself now, but their father was a pretty stellar player here in the NHL. And now Kelly and Kevin Klima are both here at the Coyotes. And what have you seen from them?
They're an interesting story, obviously. The Coyotes signed them. They're looking for them as depth players in the organization.
Right.
They've been at the development camp together. We had to do a double take when they first arrived, who's who. But yeah, it's an interesting story if you can watch and see the way that they play together. They're not always playing together, but I think they have the skills that be able to help the team in Tucson down in Tucson. Excuse me.
You know, and they bring a lot of excitement because every time you see those two on the ice, they're flying around the ice.
True.
And you got a left-handed shot and you got a right-handed shot. So
right, it's perfect.
It's kind of cool. If they played with Liam Kirk, we'd have the Triple K line or
there
something,
you go.
right?
Right.
So talk a little bit about the goaltenders as well, Dave.
Sure.
The guys are getting a chance to show what they got, and and they've looked pretty solid so far in the first two games, right?
Yeah, we saw Merrick Madsen in the first game. Merrick, of course, is turning pro this year. He had a 4-year career at Harvard University. He left there, off the top of my head, he's in the top 5 all time as far as key goaltending statistics in terms of save percentage, goals against, victories. So he had a stellar career, and now it's time to turn pro. Merrick is a very big goalie. He's athletic, very intelligent, obviously, coming from the Harvard background. So he played the other day. Gave up 2 goals. The third goal, we're still not actually sure it went in the net.
Yeah.
No replays or anything.
All right.
The Coyotes insisted never went in, and then San Jose scored an empty net goal. So we're going with he only allowed 2 goals in that game. So I thought he fared well in his first outing. And then yesterday we saw Ivan Prosvetov, who the Coyotes just drafted this year. He's a Russian goalie, excuse me, that left Russia to pursue the dream of playing in the NHL, and obviously getting drafted is the first step. Here he is, very athletic goalie. I don't know if you were able to see him warm up or stretch.
Yes.
He can do amazing things with his body. He's
flexible, huh?
He's a gymnast, I believe.
Right.
He has a gymnastics background. So you watch him stretching and these things he does before the game. It's simply amazing. At the development camp, and this is no joke, I didn't see it. This is secondhand, but I was told he did a cartwheel on the ice after the game in full gear.
Kidding me?
So
we should have video camera
I'm trying
rolling
to
for
find
that, right?
footage of that. I'm not sure it exists, but that's what I was told. So he's very athletic. He has to learn. He's a huge upside for him. He's been playing in North America a little bit. I know on Sunday there was some confusion with the trapezoid. He's still trying to learn all of that.
Yeah, right.
So he's got some learning to do here in North America, and eventually on his path to hopefully playing in the NHL.
Where do you see him headed after this camp breaks?
That's a good question. Well, the Coyotes I would imagine he'd go back to junior or.
Right.
I'm not exactly sure. That's a great question.
They're loaded in goal.
Loaded in goal. You have Antti Ranta, of course, who's poised for a huge breakout season after what he showed in the second half of last season. Darcy Kemper is the backup for the Coyotes. Then in Tucson, you've got Aiden Hill and Hunter Miska. Those two established themselves as AHL goalies last year as a tandem. So goaltending is set in Tucson. There's not a lot of room on this goaltending depth chart. So 3 goalies here at this camp. They've got some work to do. They know that, and they've got to earn spots somewhere in the organization.
All right, Dave, let's take another quick break. We'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about the organization specifically and the direction they're headed.
Sure.
All right, we're back with the final segment with Dave Vest and the Arizona Coyotes. And as you can see in the background, again, we're still here at City National Arena. We got a Coyotes practice, rookie practice going on behind us. But Dave, I want to touch a little bit about the organization. You've been around for a while. You've seen everything that's happened in the organization, at least in the Phoenix part of it or the Arizona part of it. So tell me a little bit about how stable you think things are. From the outside, they look very stable, as stable as they've been in years.
Sure. Well, I mean, the optimism for this season is really high. The Coyotes haven't been in the playoffs since 2012, since they made that run to the Western Conference Finals. I was there for that and covered the team for the website as I do now, and I can't believe that was 6 years ago.
Right.
So I know the team is very eager to get back to the playoffs. The environment at the arena during the playoffs that year was amazing. Phoenix is a very, results-based fan base, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
if the teams in Phoenix are winning, the fans will come out in droves. A lot of people in Phoenix, as in Las Vegas, are from other places, so they have allegiances to other teams. But if the local teams can win, it generates a huge buzz in the Phoenix area, and that's what happened in 2012. So I think the optimism for this year is very high within the organization and on the outside as well. John Chayka's made a lot of interesting moves in this offseason. He's brought in some players with abilities to score. I mentioned Galchenyuk earlier. Right. Michael Grabner is a player that the Coyotes have very high expectations of. He's a 30-goal scorer as well. So just bringing in those two guys, there's a lot of excitement around that. Vinny Hinostroza from the Blackhawks, he's a player that not a lot of people know of by name yet, but he's a player on the cusp of breaking through. So offensively, they've made some upgrades. The defense is basically the same from last year. Very solid defense.
Yeah, deep defense.
It is very deep. Jordan Oesterle was brought in from Chicago. He's probably going to be the seventh defenseman. He was playing a lot of minutes for Chicago last year. But and then, of course, I mentioned Antti Raanta. To me, he's the key. Antti Raanta just...
Well, he proved that second half of the season, right?
He was, if not one of the top three best goalies in the league. You look at his numbers from January to April, outstanding. He had some injuries early on that hampered his play. He couldn't stay on the ice consistently, but once he got over all that, got in net, it was a whole different story. So I think Antti Raanta is the key for the Coyotes season this year. If he can play like he did at the end of last year, he could take this team a long way.
And we have Talk back for his second year now. So I got a feeling he's feeling more comfortable with not only the guys, but his coaching staff. And
very much so.
What we've brought on down in Tucson with Coach Ferrati, we've got a pretty solid coaching staff, I think, top to bottom.
Yeah, I mean, last season, Talk got the job in June or July.
Right.
Can't remember exactly when. He only had a couple months to get going, get himself introduced to all the players. His coaching staff, brand new. So it took a little while there, and then the Coyotes had that start where they were on the road to start last season.
It was a brutal schedule.
It was historically brutal in terms of road games to start a season. Obviously, they didn't fare well, but putting all that behind them, getting adjusted, having the players come in and get adjusted to Talk's system, much more offense-oriented than Dave Tippett's defensive system that they'd been playing for years.
Right.
So there was a period of adjustment, and they took their lumps, but once they figured it out, as I mentioned earlier, right around January when the All-Star break, or just before that, it all started to come together, and I think everyone's very excited by what happened at that stretch.
Two things that I want to finish up on. Number one is it's so much fun and so enjoyable not to talk about an arena. I mean, let's just leave the arena stuff out of it. Let's talk about hockey.
Yeah.
And the other thing I want to talk about is the guys that want to come here and play. I mean, everybody that's on this team right now wants to be in Arizona. They want to be in the desert.
Sure.
Nobody more than Oliver Ekman-Larsson and the big contract that he signed.
Yeah.
So take your crystal ball out. Is he going to have a C on his jersey by sometime this year?
We'll see. I mean, there's all indications that he's the man for the job. He made a huge commitment to the team this summer. They made a huge commitment to him. We'll see how that all plays out. I think there might be some news along those lines coming up soon. But as of right now, if I had to pick a favorite to fill the captain role, if Talk does indeed go with the captain, I would have to say OEL would be my choice.
And the final thing that I want to get your opinion on is the whole Shane Doan story has come full circle now, and then the Coyotes are going to honor him, and he's going to be in the Ring of Honor, and that jersey's going to be retired. Nobody will wear that 19 again, and I know you and Shane are close.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about what your gut tells you about Shane Doan and how close he's going to continue to be with the organization.
Well, Shane, first of all, is probably, not probably, I'll just say it, he was a joy, the player I enjoyed covering most in all my years as a sports reporter, and I've covered all the major sports. I've covered golf, I've covered college sports, but Shane Doan is simply a terrific person and was fun to cover. He never said no to any interview requests after wins, after losses. So I missed Shane last year, not having him around. It was odd. He's back in the fold now after a year away from the team and the game. As you mentioned, the Coyotes are going to retire his jersey in February. There's going to be a big ceremony, so we're all looking forward to that. What can you say about Shane Doan in terms of loyalty, the way he just stuck with the Coyotes through all sorts of situations, good and bad. His loyalty never questioned, always on display, and it's just great, I think, that the Coyotes have decided to honor Shane in this way, certainly much deserved. And as I said, it's not until February, but it's all anybody in the office is talking about. We can't wait.
Well, you know what? When you get up to the ice, then you've got no choice but to honor him because his name's on the rink.
Yeah, right. The Shane Doan rink.
You're not going to forget about that.
No, the Coyotes naming one of their practice rinks after him. The rink named one of their rinks after Shane. Shane lives about 5 minutes from there. No-brainer.
The only thing that would have been better is if that face had been on the rink, huh? Dave, I appreciate your time. Enjoy the rest of your stay up here in Vegas, and let's get the season off on the right start when we get rolling here in a couple of weeks.
Okay, Scott. Thanks for having me.